and welcome to Dice on Ice. I am Connor, and I'm going to be GMing a game of Freeman's Will, a game set in, I guess, the universe of Harbinger, but far from Bastion, far from those warring septs. Instead, we're zooming in on a world, a moon, called Thoth. Thoth is a moon far distant. It orbits a distant sun, and its surface is covered in a vast, cold desert, like Mars. And in this world of Thoth, Astra has been refined and processed and researched and exploited to the point where it's no longer some gaseous magical thing. It is now a potent serum, almost drug-like in its applications. And this distilled and refined form of Astra is intensely radioactive and mutational, or whatever the word is, causing mutants and terrible sorcerers known as Mancers to rise in this world. And it gave way to the rise of these tyrants and overlords, Mancer-Kings that rule these city-states, each with an iron fist. They are mutants, abominations of flesh, immortal and indomitable, and they have outlawed the use of Astra everywhere to assure their own superiority as basically gods. That doesn't stop people, however, in the undercities and beyond the city's walls. Or should I say biodomes, for this planet is inhospitable beyond the giant domes that keep the city-states intact. And so this Astra is passed between as black market trades or scavenged from distant travelers and wanderers as some really bloody resource. And it's bloody not only in its history, but also what it does. As mutations in this world aren't X-Men superpowers. No, they're the things that cause cancers, tumors, lacerations, and other illnesses of the flesh in exchange for glorious Astra magic. And we follow the story of 4 scavengers, wastelanders, and wanderers, all fleeing from some kind of past in some way or another, all on the wrong side of the Mancer-Kings laws. We'll start with Megan. Can you please introduce who your character is?
Hey everyone, I'm Megan, and I am Flynn, the absolutely very lovable, no matter what anyone else says, character who, I mean, he only has blood coming out of everywhere. So that should not be that should not be held against him. But no, in all seriousness, Finn is this very interesting character who is you don't know whether he's there to help you or not, or leave you in the waste. So we'll see.
And he's a Mancer, correct?
Yes, he is.
All right. You can tell me who your character is, Jeremy. It's been a while. Let's get a nice fresh recap of, or not even recap, just an introduction or a reintroduction of your character.
Sure thing. I am playing Bristol Node. He goes by Node. He is a treader, a stalker-style treader, and he's not entirely who he was born as. He's upgraded many parts of his body throughout the years, whether through necessity or voluntarily doing so. And he deals in parts like this, necrotech, as well as information, kind of an information broker. Not a great guy, but a fun one to play. So I'm excited.
One that survives nonetheless. And lastly, because our dear friend Chad is unable to make it due to many life issues, mostly the weather, and that's very unfortunate what he's having over in the west side of this continent. We'll go to Karen last here. You can introduce, or I guess reintroduce, your character.
So I am playing a girl named Andala. She's a young lady, a survivor. She's been out in the wastes and the exiled for at this point, a good portion of her life. She's got a bit of a history with Finn, not that she knew until she saw him and realized that he's the reason, at least one of them, why she's exiled at this moment, being as she is a Mancer as well, and as such, not allowed to live in the cities. They tend to take them and kill them. So she ran for her life and has since then tried to survive in the outskirts, but has never yet lost her optimism that life can get better.
And so we begin our session where we left off, when our overlays got a bit screwy, but we were zipping through the sand. Behind us was this massive wall of sand, a great sandstorm that was coming upon you faster than any kind of vehicle could move. And there you are, as the wind is buffeting your face, little sand particles shear your flesh. You're riding on these levibikes. They hover above the ground and use some kind of magnetic propulsion system to keep afloat and zip forward, causing these huge wakes of sand and dust behind them. Node, you're on your own. It's this amalgamation of both necrographed parts and this machine that you've assembled over time. On Dala, you've scavenged one of the levibikes, the raiders you had just previously encountered, I'll say. You grabbed one of theirs, rigged it back up together to be working, and are zipping along with it too. And Finn, you're riding alongside Rost. You're, your back to shoulder, right behind him as he's steering as well on one of these scavenged levibikes. You hear, but this howl is from behind you. And it's growing louder and louder. You can feel just the wind, the sand, everything around you. And that's when something zips out from behind, coming out of the back end of Node's levibike. Like a small rock, perhaps, just kicked out from this huge velocity. And it strikes Rost square in the side of the head. It sends him flying off the levibike. Finn, you see this all happen right in front of you as Rost is just knocked free from this levibike. What do you do?
Is he still hanging on, or is he just off the bike?
You whip around your head to look, and you see him dangling from the side of this levibike, and you actually see his fingers start to just smoke and burn and scald and steam as like that hot metal that he's gripping onto, but he's gripping on nonetheless. You notice that your levibike is being dragged down by his unbalanced weight, as well as the lack of a steering is causing it to kind of wobble and falter. I smacked my light. What do you do?
Finn is going to, with one hand, try and reach forward to grab the handle, and with the other hand, reach out towards Rost. But not say anything, just look at him.
Rost is looking up and down. He's like, oh, fucking shit, as his hand is burning, and he lets go. And as he yells, you can't even hear what he says as the wind is too loud, but you just see this slumping, crumbling form get swallowed by the dust.
Finn turns around, wedges himself back up into the driver's seat of this bike, grips both handles with his hands, and is going to try to operate this thing straight ahead.
And do you have any proficiency or training with operating these kind of vehicles?
Not even a little bit.
All right, so you can see, all three of you can see the ridges that you were aiming for last session. They were these bits of rock and stone that were kind of peeking above the horizon line, and they're drawing closer and closer yet. They're maybe a quarter mile off now as the sandstorm is just keeping up to you. I need all three of you please to make dexterity checks to navigate as you realize the terrain is running more bumpy and bumpier. Large rock outcroppings are kind of starting to peek out from the sand. And unfortunately for Finn, you don't get any proficiency with this, but the other two you might if you've got proficiency in land vehicles.
There's no domain dice that we can use.
Yeah, we don't have any dice on ice. Dice on ice dice? We should just call them ice dice, shouldn't we?
Ice dice.
Unfortunately, no, we do not have that. So, Finn, what did you get?
I got a nat 1 for a total of 3.
So, from the perspective of Node, you see Andala whiz alongside you, keeping pace with your engineered monstrosity of a vehicle. And you make it safe into this narrow passage between the ridges. And as you kind of wheel your bike around, you can see that Finn is long behind. He's struggling with the steering. And as he comes crashing in, just crumpling the bike on some nearby rock outcropping, Finn, you're going to take a total of 10 points of bludgeoning damage as you basically get tossed from this bike as it just shatters to smithereens, and you kind of roll in the dust next to Node and Andala. And you've arrived into this kind of sheltering area here between these two rocky outcroppings as the sandstorm has basically come upon you. You've got like 30 seconds left before this huge tidal wave of stuff comes at you.
But all of us made it. All of us made it into the niche?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
With some damages to Finn, of course.
Okay, so Node is going to hop off of his necro bike and immediately grab his bedroll, this kind of patched together length of fabric that's got holes in it, despite the patches, the numerous patches. So he pulls this out and kind of unfurls it in kind of a big snap. And as he does so, he crouches down next to his levibike and pulls the blanket over himself and the bike.
How about Andala?
Taking her cue from what Node has just done, she also grabs her bedroll and likewise does the same thing, hunkers down behind her bike, with her bike towards the entrance, I guess, of this niche, and her behind it.
And Finn, you come just like rolling in. Got a few seconds just to get bearings. What do you do?
Is the bike totaled?
It is destroyed. You have the handlebar here, the back engine there. It's smoke coming off, and you see a big kind of rent in the side, still like hot red from the impact. You're lucky to be alive.
Finn is going to take his... Well, I don't know if he's going to look in the bike to see if there's a bedroll in there because he didn't bring anything because his thing died, right?
Yeah.
So
right.
anything on
just killed. Right.
And I don't think I didn't say that he brought anything, so anything on the bike would have been Ross, so he doesn't know where it is, so he's going to frantically begin to look to try and take the note off of the other two.
And so this was actually Ross actually had scavenged one of the bikes of these raiders. So this isn't even Rost's bike because he came here on an Anine that died long ago.
Right.
In that fight.
Yeah.
So I want you to roll a D10, please.
Okay. A 1.
You definitely do not find any sort of supplies in this nearby thing. You just have the rest of the bike that may even have anything is like 50 feet away from you. And like just the part of the bike that's in front of you has nothing but crumpled metal.
Who is closest to Finn?
Node can be, yeah.
Okay. So Finn is going to run over to where Node is, and Node, all you see is like this kind of your bedroll lift up, and you see Finn. Can I take shelter here? There is nothing else.
Oh, damn it. Yes. Yeah, I suppose so. Get in here. Hurry up.
And Finn would crawl in.
And the moment that passes is one of the strangest moments all three of you have ever felt. You sit there, you grate your teeth, you clench your muscles, you wait for some buffeting wind to pass. And yet it doesn't. You've counted the seconds. You feel nothing. Do any of you react to this?
Yeah, Node realizes there's one of those holes in his blanket nearby. It's a place where one of the stitches has come out, and he notices it kind of barely moving. He sticks his metallic finger kind of in that hole and kind of rips a little and looks through the hole.
And what Node sees, I can only describe as a river diverting because of a stone in a creek. It seems that the sandstorm is literally being parted around this ridge area. You can see it almost as if it's just whizzing by some glass container. But it's just this eye of a storm in here, calm, nothing, not even a slight breeze. You can hear that whistle, however, of the wind, but no wind is being carried in here, just on either side.
He kind of pulls the edge of the blanket back to kind of make sure that that's not just a trick of the eye, you know, or his perception of trying to look through this small hole. Almost in disbelief, he starts looking around this small little niche.
You realize the point at which the wind seems to part is this taller, rocky spire that jets out of the rock. And this isn't what a rock spire would normally do. But you are beholding it as if it's a thin knife, perhaps, in the wind, just cutting it.
He kind of hollers over the sound of the wind. That's the only thing that's present of this sandstorm here. You ought to check this out. It's safe.
Andala would peek her out of her cover. And
You believe this?
What is the spire made of? Like, what does it look like? It is? Is it rock?
I want you to make either. I don't know if nature checks exist in this system because I'm a bad DM. A perception check, and I guess if Jeremy's nodding, yeah, some kind of like nature check or intelligence check about natural things. If there's like a science skill in there, perhaps that could work too.
Definitely have nature, so.
Yep, sure, nature will do.
So 14. Sorry, 14 on the dice, so 18.
You notice that the coloration of this rocky spire seems to be a bit off, and as well as its texture. It does not quite have it has a weird, almost like a glossy finish to it. One that would catch light and refract it a bit, as if it was glistening moist. But that can't be possible in a desert world. Maybe it has some kind of varnish on it. That doesn't make sense either. But it has that kind of appearance to it. It's a little bit different. And as well as what you notice as you're trying to like investigate this, you notice bits of something are falling from the sky. And they sparkle in the light, and you realize that they are pieces of glass. You can look up and see the sand that's passing by is moltening and then cooling down again and becoming these little bits of glass from this. As you see, little conflagrations happen now and then across this parting of the wind, and it literally just glass is falling now from those sides.
The glass is not falling in where we're at, it's falling.
No, kind of in this like perimeter, and it kind of just falls gently, almost as if it were snow. It's starting to begin to kind of pile up now along these edges.
It appears as though we have been blessed.
Well, I don't know about that. If we were blessed, I don't think we would have found our way here in the first place. But we do appear to be safe, and that's good enough. At least for now.
Can I have everyone's passive perception scores, please?
15.
Finn, actually, you're the one that's kind of like looking in awe at this all. And you see movement in the rocky outcropping directly across from you. And you notice it because of the way a bit of this glass snow falls off the edge of this cliff as if disturbed by something. And you see just a bit of movement pass.
I think we are not alone here. There is something moving. Something
Where?
else.
Node kind of looks around.
Over that way, and Finn would point a bloody hand.
Out there? No, I don't think so. I don't think there's anything in the world that'd be able to be out there and be safe.
Behind the rock, I saw the glass move.
He's going to go over to his bike and retrieve his carbine. Check it, make sure it's loaded and ready.
I think at this point, when you're talking about nobody could live out there, I think this is at the point where Andala is looking around and noticing that there's just the three of us. And she turns and looks at you, Finn. Where's Rost?
Rost fell.
This node turns around. What do you mean he fell? Where?
Back that away. And he points back towards the storm. A few minutes back.
You didn't say anything? You didn't think it was important to tell anyone?
Do you see my bike? I was trying to control it and not die myself.
Well, there's no use in worrying about it now. If he's out there, he's dead. It's a shame. He was a son of a bitch, but he was a pretty good friend. He'll be missed.
I think Andala would look at you kind of almost with horror in eyes, like, and I think she'd go up to you actually, and she would like punch you in the chest, like, that's it? That's all you're going to say about him?
And there's like this like soft metallic like thing whenever you punch him in the chest, and the flesh that he has that's actually on his chest, you can tell is pretty much just kind of laid over like this artificial skeleton almost. And he says, would you prefer that I went after him? Would I go back out in the sand?
No.
If it means that much to you, we can collect his bones whenever it's all finished.
If the carrion have not eaten it first.
True. We'll just have to see what we can find, I suppose.
You guys are horrible. And I think Andala would just, at this point, just kind of flop onto the ground.
Finn would just look at Node and just kind of shrug.
He just shakes his head like he doesn't understand.
Node, you get the feeling that something's watching you. Just that you have eyes on your back. You can't just shake this feeling. It's something gut in you.
He kind of tries to keep laughing. This almost like pantomime of what he was just doing, and walks over to his bike and reaches up and uses his sleeve to kind of polish the edge of the skull that forms kind of like the front headpiece of this necrobike until it's kind of nice and shiny again. And then he actually uses that to try to see if he can see behind him in the reflection.
Yeah, give me a perception check.
You want disadvantage since it's kind of a wonky situation?
You know what? Because you suggested it, yeah.
Perfect. I love it. All right, let's see here. That's not too bad. 13, so it's a 17 total.
Oh, that's pretty good for...
Yeah, 13 and 14.
And your suspicions are true. You see some shape that you thought was a rock. And it sits there for a bit. And then it notices you noticing it. And it darts away. And you notice other shifting as well. Along this whole kind of ridge area that you're looking behind you. You realize that you're flanked right now by... You're essentially in a valley. Flanked by these ridges that keep going downwards.
How far back does it seem to go away from the sandstorm?
You can't see the end from here.
Okay.
Whether that's because it makes a sharp curve or because it goes on forever, you're unsure. But it's as farther than the eye can see, at least.
He's going to turn to the other two and say, "You aren't wrong. We aren't the only ones around here, and I think there's more than one of them. We may want to move in deeper so that way we can put a wall against our backs."
Are we bringing the bikes?
Does it look like they would fit continuing down here without like having to like rub the sides of the canyon or each other?
Yeah, you probably could do single file, at not too fast of a speed because of how many sharp curves and outcroppings there are. You have to go a steady pace, but you could probably fit it, but not very fast. Faster than walking for sure, but
yeah, I think it's a good idea. We should take them. You can maybe double up with Andala.
And Finn looks at Andala and smiles. His bloody teeth gleam in this light.
And for once, Andala doesn't even react, actually. It's almost like she's not all here. Very kind of complacent. She's just walking over to her bike, getting it ready, not really saying anything.
Finn would actually go over and retrieve one of the broken handlebars from the bike and kind of place it so that it's strapped using to his chest using a lot of different of these. I almost imagine that he's wearing like these cloth bandages-esque kind of crisscross around his chest, and so he kind of wedges the handlebars in between the bandages.
And so you mount your levibikes. You have the engines begin to purr again as they get going. They raise off the ground with their propulsion. And you set off one by one. Who is in the lead between the two bikes?
I do not think Andala would actually, at this point, lead. She is, at this moment, completely following.
And so, Node, as you're driving in the lead, boom, you hit something. After about 5 or so minutes of driving down this canyon. Thankfully, you weren't going that fast to cause any kind of damage. You kind of look ahead to see what you hit. You don't see anything.
He'll pull up to a stop, kind of shift the nose of his levibike to the side to kind of see if it had gone underneath. He kind of looks back to see if maybe he had passed it already, and instead he sees Andala and Finn coming up. Did y'all see something in the road? This space here? Something I hit? No?
No.
Huh. I just want to hit something, but I don't see it. Well, we still being followed?
Finn would look behind, as he is the last person, to see if he can see any sign of movement.
And you do. And it seems every time you look, the number of things you notice shifting and having eyes upon you as it feels doubles. At first it was 1, now it feels like 2, now it feels like 4. And after this about time, you feel over 30 of them, these things, scurrying amongst the rocks, watching you. Not all at once, but intermittently.
So Finn would turn back to face Node and just slowly nod.
He kind of looks back ahead of them where the direction they were heading. I suppose we go deeper then. Boom. He'll swing his bike back around kind of on point and rev the throttle and head down the canyon further.
And you hit something. Boom. As if you're walking or driving right into a wall. Boom.
He kind of, it jars him almost out of the saddle of his bike, and he kind of looks in front of him and then kills the engine on the bike and swings his leg over, kind of walks forward and puts his hand out, almost trying to feel where this invisible wall might be.
And you feel it, and as your palm presses to it, it ripples almost as if it were water. Like the way that heat, like the heat of an engine will cause the air to distort above it. Just this weird distortion happens in front of you, and you cannot press your hand any further.
He pulls his hand back, almost like it was an injury, and he kind of shakes his head. He said, "This is some Astra bullshit. This is y'all's job." He turns around and kind of walks away.
Andala would bring the levibike to kind of a stop up closer to where Node has been. And she would get off the bike and go up towards this, whatever it is that Node has seen, and what is it, Node? Why'd we stop?
There's some kind of invisible wall that's blocking me from going any further in the canyon. Like I said, it's some Astra bullshit. That's not my department. It's something you're going to have to figure out. He kind of goes back over to his bike and leans on it and crosses his hands over his metallic chest.
Dala would approach this whatever it is, and she put her hand out to touch what Node is talking about.
And you feel it's solid, though it is air. It seems to fight back against you as you push against it. It's like a giant stone wall, though you can see directly through it. And you notice that slight shimmering, that slight faltering in the light as it kind of bends and warps in front of you. And you may try and find going left and right, up and down, but yet it is all there, just this sheer surface of invisibility.
Do I feel a tingle or anything, or is it just like, do I feel a cold or any sort of sensation when we touch it, or is it just
no sensation beyond the pressure of your hand against it? It's not hot nor cold, rough, not roughy nor smooth. Roughy, not rough nor smooth.
Have I ever come across something like this before, like tech-wise or Astra?
You know that Astra, the magic of Astra, is flashy, vibrant, and fleshy, if that makes any sense. It's always accompanied by, bright light, a sickening sensation in your gut. You can feel your skin crawl, and so on and so forth. But this is not like that. And you think of technology, but yet again, technology is made of metal, not air.
So I think Andala would actually step back a little ways and try to grab a fair-sized stone from the ground. Probably like an inch or so round. And she would throw it at the barricade.
Clink! It just bounces off as if you threw against a wall.
Does it make a sound?
It does.
She turns to Node. I have never seen anything like this before.
And when you turn to Node on Dala, you see behind him dozens of figures.
Like I said, it's more your department than mine.
You should. I want to show you something. You should.
Look, I told you, I'm not going to understand what it is.
No, I know, but it's over here. You need to come see this.
I don't know what good you think it's going to do, but I suppose I might as well humor you. He's going to kind of up from the levibike and walk over to where Andala is, kind of looking at the ground, almost expectant to find whatever it is that she's talking about. What?
Don't look now, but behind you, there's a dozen. What size are they?
You, out of the corner of your eye, you size them up. They range in height from perhaps 4 feet to 8 feet tall.
Oh, good gracious. We're surrounded.
He kind of stiffens. There's probably like a couple of small like whirring noises as like the vertebrae of his that have been replaced with like small little servo type devices kind of straighten along with the rest of his musculature. He kind of looks over to where his bike is and where the carbine is, kind of sitting side saddle with it. Damn it. Well, I suppose we're going to have to fight our way out of here. If you can't figure out a way to get through this wall or whatever it is. He's going to turn around, and as he turns around, he's going to make a dash for his bike if he can get to his gun.
Absolutely. You could dive, probably even doing a bit of a roll. just to skid along the sand. You reach their bike. You're able to clutch that carbine in your hand. Finn, what do you do at the mention of all this?
I feel like Finn was still at the bikes because he didn't want to go and see this thing. He had no interest. So, I mean, he's more of a healer. So he just was sitting there. And then when Node came over and... Oh. Sorry. So sorry about that. As soon as he sees Node kind of duck and roll and grab his carbine, you see Finn kind of cock his head a little bit, and at that point he's going to look behind him. Oh, this is not good.
In the sight you see, the figures you see, as I said, they range in height from 4 to 8 feet. They stand silent. They have not approached you, yet they seem to block off the entirety of the way you came. So now you're basically pinned between these wall of a dozen or more of these figures and this wall that is invisible and you cannot pass. You notice them. You notice their strange posture. You notice the fact that they are unarmed. You notice that some of them have 4 legs, almost centaur-ish. You notice long antennae dancing above their heads. You see giant mandibles clicking, making strange sounds. They pop their heads in strange ways. You can see exoskeleton covering their whole bodies. These are mantoids of Thoth. What stories exist of them may only be rumors and hearsay, but in actuality, they are the native life species of this planet, almost wiped to extinction by the arrival of humans.
So
All of a sudden, oh, go ahead.
Sorry. So are these mantoids more of like myth, or are they kind of like a daily thing that people have to?
Myth is definitely either. So there could be many stages of it. Either it's myth, they are exaggerated, they are basically any ways you can distort the truth.
Okay.
Is about these things. Nothing really is known about them except for the fact that they might exist, might not.
Okay.
And those who know the wastelands more than the city-states, someone like Rost, probably have the most knowledge of them. They're elusive.
Are they known to be hostile?
No, you have no idea.
Okay.
And as these things flick their mandibles at you, all 3 of you get the strong sensation of the smell of citrus. Then it backs off. You feel what it feels like to have a cold sensation run from your toes to your head, then it backs off. And then warm words seem to form in your mind. Yet they're not true words, you're not listening to them. The idea of greetings comes to your forefront of your mind, as if pulled there by some fishing rod or some strange grappling hook. Whoosh! All 18 or so of them step forward in unison, one stride, closing the distance between you. You've got about now 50 feet between the invisible wall and this line of strange creatures.
Node, who had been kind of caught off guard by this like internal display of images and messages, all of a sudden kind of like shakes his head and like does the equivalent of basically cocking his carbine. You kind of hear it like power up, and he kind of shoulders it towards whichever one is closest. You know, I'll just stay right where you're at. There's no reason to get any closer.
Almost in cue with that phrase, they all take another step forward, though forming more of a semicircle now, as the ones on the far edges step farther than the ones dead ahead of you, kind of more making like some kind of hemisphere, or I guess hemicircle.
And I think Dala would actually, when she's got those images that go through her mind, she would actually step up to where Node is and maybe reach out and kind of put her hand on the carbine and kind of lower it.
What the hell are you doing?
I don't think they want to hurt us, as long as we're not hostile.
How can you be sure that that's the case? Everything out here wants to either kill us or eat us or both. What makes you think they're any different?
I just have this feeling.
Your feelings?
Trust me on this one.
Oh, Ondala. This is only because I might owe you. And he kind of lowers the gun willingly and powers it down. You'd better be right.
I hope I am. Thank you. And she would step in front of Node so that she's the closest.
And matching your movement as you make a step towards them, one particular of these figures, the tallest one, dead center, steps out of this line towards you, Amdala, as if mirroring your action. You realize this one is not unarmed in so that it has, or I guess you could say, a set of two larger ones above, near where a human's shoulders would be, and two smaller appendages almost kind of curled in to their chest. And in these smaller arms is holding, I guess, a walking stick would be the best thing for a human, but it's made of this weird glossy material. And it cues in your mind perhaps it has that same glossiness as that strange structure you saw back. And it takes a stride forward with this walking stick, and it cocks its head. And you have the mental image of the sunrise of Thoth.
I try to think it back, but I don't know what else to do at this point. She just will look at the creature and kind of maybe nod.
You have the mental image that fades away, you have sense to your mind. You feel moisture on your tongue now. It's something you haven't had in a long time. And you hear a sound of trickling water, rushing water. Neither Node nor Finn hear this sound.
You can lead us to water?
What?
Does Andala reply to this from Node?
No. She's focused on the creature.
What is Finn doing here?
Well, Finn is looking, just kind of looking back and forth with this confused but slightly interested expression. They are speaking to you, Andala. Isn't that right?
There's no way that she can understand that chittering and chattering.
Some creatures speak differently than just verbal, Node.
More Astra bullshit. He kind of walks back over to his bike.
Andala, again, another mental image comes assaulting you, but not even, I feel like you're a bit more aware of how this connection happens. You see in your mind's eye a black cube, perhaps 4 inches on each side. It's obsidian. It's got strange etchings in it. You see then a mental image of Node's side pocket. Then you see the mental image of a great pool of water. It's been illuminated by these bioluminescent fungi in this purplish glow. The mental image of a sunrise meets you yet again. But you realize this sunrise has another hidden detail in it. At the base of this sunrise, it's eclipsing what seems to be structures, human-made structures, for to be more specific, a biodome of a city-state. Yet this biodome is literally falling apart as if through some kind of, structural collapse. And then the mental images cease.
Andala would turn to Node, and I don't know what they're saying, but you still have that cube?
He kind of looks to her almost like, did you really have to say something?
They already know. They know you have it in your side pocket.
How the hell is that? I wonder. He kind of looks at her.
I didn't even know you had it in your side pocket.
You're interrupted, all 3 of you, by a word coming off of who knows where, but it's inside, rattling in your brain. Ronin. As if enunciated by some strange vocalization that is in no way human.
Kind of like reaches up and like hits the side of his head, kind of right in this one little spot that's got a almost like a trapezoidal shaped piece of metal that's been fused to the bone of his skull. There's kind of like this clang clang, and he shakes his head for a second.
It seems as though the divine has given us the next chapter of our road. The next way to where we need to be is by these creatures, I think.
So they knew Ronin, and they want this box.
I don't know if they want it. And she would turn back to the creature and say, Ronin, a friend?
You see...
Try to think of friend.
Do you say the word friend, or do you think the word friend?
I say the word friend, but I also try to think what it means to me.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of hard to say something without thinking of it. So you, as like a quick response, almost instantaneous to the word friend, you see the mental image of these strange things hanging from some kind of cavern wall, and they have a bit of kind of a mucousy layer, and there's a bunch of orbs within them. They kind of pulsate a bit. You get the sensation that they are eggs. There's young things inside there that will grow up together. This sensation, it's not even your own conclusions about it. You just get this intuition that these eggs will grow up together and be bonded.
Like clutch mates, almost.
Yeah, that's I guess one way for your human mind to kind of interpret it.
And she says the name Ronan again, thinking of the man that she knew.
And the mental image of Ronan appears in your mind. Like, you see him head to toe in perfect detail, all of his forms. This was back when, this actually be long after you've seen him last. He looks weathered and aged, the graying of his temples. He's got mottled skin. You notice a large lump in his neck, a tumor that's grown from his radioactive exposure on this moon. He's old. He's got many wrinkles. And he's dressed in garb that would cover most of his face, but it's been revealed in this mental image. He's basically like a sand wanderer's garb, fit with a breather and everything.
She would then think, I haven't actually ever seen the sun yet, have I? I would think the name, because I don't have a face to go with it. But I would like think Ronan's offspring and Tantan.
You get nothing back. What? My bad, I wrote it down wrong. Nice. You get a pause. And then you get the image of that black cube.
Back to Node. They know Ronan. They've seen him far more recently than I ever have. They know about the cube.
Well, we don't exactly have much of a choice, I suppose. He kind of fishes down in the side pocket, pulls out this black cube, kind of looks at it, already feeling the pang of loss and disappointment of whatever information he might have been able to glean off of this thing before he tosses it over to Ondala.
The box hangs in midair as if suspended by a thread, mid-trajectory. And it floats back to your hand node. You get the mental image of a collapsing city-state, eclipsed by a rising sun as it lands in your hand again. You get a strong sense of self, something that was not there before. In unison, all of these 18 mantoids take another stride towards you, further kind of pinching off in this strange circular formation to be almost completely surrounding you now.
I think Node makes like almost like an instinctual like step towards like the last little remaining opening in this tightening circle before he kind of realizes that maybe he does just need to trust Ondala and just let happen what's going to happen. He kind of looks down at this cube instead, just shakes his head, puts it in his pocket, and then just accepts his fate.
A sensation comes over all three of you as you realize the gravity of your thirst, your dehydration right now. And there's something a bit foreign about this idea of dehydration. You feel as if your mandibles are a bit dry, but you have no mandibles. So there's a bit of like, this idea that I am dehydrated is not your own idea, but still it causes you to realize how parched you are. And then the mental image you collectively see in your mind of a pool of that water, illuminated by those purple fluorescent microbes in this cavern.
Where is this place?
Do you vocalize that out loud?
Yes. Yeah.
That lead mantoid clacks for quite a while. It's another mantoid clacks in response. And then one beside it pulls out one of its long hands, and you realize it's serrated along a huge basin of water.